Well, today we look at things a little bit differently. In the past, we thought of a drying system or grain bins and grain dryers as something that kept you out of the line at the elevator. And that seemed to be the big reason that people went that way. Today, it's a little different. Farmers today are looking a lot more at their return on investment, and they're using the type of tools that you look and see how your financials are going. And if you ever take and look down at a grain system, the bins, the material handling equipment that moves the grain, and the dryer itself, and you compare that to what you would have brought into your farm by going to the elevator, you're going to find that there's a really good return on investment. And it's a year after year return. This year with the drought, it may be a situation where the peak price may be at harvest. And of course, everyone brings up that I could have sold my grain at the high point at harvest, but those normally only happen 1 year out of 10 or possibly even less. So when you go back and look at the long term, look at the difference in price that you can get 3 months down the road compared to what you get at harvest, look at the overall return. There's a good return in terms of the return on investment. Grain drying gives you a great deal of flexibility. You get to start when you want to start. You condition the grain so it stores easily, and it just speeds up the harvest process a great deal. The other thing that we're seeing as a trend is that the days of using a regular auger are probably going away. Farmers really are not farmers in terms of the storage of the grain anymore. They're small elevators. They just haven't figured that out yet. Their capacities and sizes, as I look back when I started in this industry 35 years ago, the average elevator's storage and drying capacity was much smaller than the average farmer's storage and drying capacity today. So it's a different thing. It's changed radically.
The vision controller on the dryers gives significant impact to how the farmers today can monitor what they're doing. It used to be they'd sit out with the dryer all night long and they'd fidget with the buttons and they'd move the temperatures, and now they can literally look and see what their dryer is doing at any point in time throughout the day and night. If they get up in the middle of the night, it could be on their computer screen. They can pull it up on their cell phone using today's technology. The watchdog programs that we have that are available that tie in with the vision system are really significant in especially the younger and the middle generations to be able to let go of some things, and they can now spend more time with their families. They can go to family events, school events, and things like that. They're not trapped into working out in the field until midnight or staying up with the dryer to babysit a dryer to make sure that their grain is absolutely in control in the process that they're putting it through as it goes into the grain bin.
The watchdog allows me to see everything that is on the main screen of the dryer, and not only that, but I can also adjust the temperature and the speed of the dryer as well as shut it down. But the biggest thing is just knowing how the dryer is performing and if it shuts down. I can sit at home and I can watch the screen on my laptop, and then when I go to bed I put the laptop right by on my nightstand by my bed, and if the dryer shuts down, it makes a noise and notifies me. And so and then if I wake up in the middle of the night, there's a lot of times I'll just roll over and take a look at it and see how things are going and then go back to sleep. It's great.
The harvest this fall is going to be quite different from what we've experienced in the past. A lot of people are going to believe that it's going to be easy. We've had the drought and this has been a really difficult thing to deal with. But what we're going to be dealing with this year is a smaller crop in a lot of areas. We're going to be dealing with a whole lot more fungus and mold, and it's going to be present right in the field. One serious thing we're going to be dealing with is that there's going to be a lot of stalk rot and a lot of corn lodging and falling down. Compared to say like '99 where it was wet and we had that challenge, this year is going to be completely different. We're not going to have a fairly large crop that we've got the problem of wet. We're going to have a drier crop that we've got the problem of mold and gibberellin and the other things that can create serious problems. This year it's going to be critical that the farmer starts early before the crop goes down, and the universities are recommending start at 25 or before. And a lot of guys are going to want to take and wait till it gets drier, and that's not going to be the right answer this year. The next thing you want to check for is before you harvest, make sure you've scouted and found out whether you've got mold or fungus, because how you handle that grain after that is a big issue. If you've got mold or fungus, you need to harvest it, get it into the dryer as quickly as possible, get it dried, because mold grows at 6% per hour rate, so you don't have a lot of time. The other recommendation the universities are making, and I completely concur with, is that you use a high temperature dryer. If you can get that kernel temperature up over 120, you can kill most of those things you don't want. If your system doesn't have that kind of temperature, you're going to have to take and look at marketing that grain much earlier, because it's not going to store well. And that's going to be a real problem, because most people think a dry fall harvest, small harvest, is going to be easy, and that's not going to be the case. Ever since I've been in the business, we've been using the same type of burner for our grain dryers. There's different kinds of burners. There's gun burners, there's spread burners, but basically the efficiency has been pretty close to the same. Recently, our engineering staff has been working on a new design for the grain dryers and the burners to try to help the efficiency. Now, this efficiency improvement is going to be enough that you're going to notice it, and it's going to be a value to not only the user in terms of how much gas he consumes per hour, but also how much gas he uses for the whole year. Anytime you can save in gas, you've reduced your operating costs on your grain dryer. The burner is going to be bluer, it's going to look better, which really doesn't mean anything to you financially, but it makes it easier to look at, and the overall cost is going to be reduced. Anytime you can reduce cost in a grain dryer, it's a good thing, and this burner is going to be a great thing for us. The new burner is going to have an effect on everyone. It really doesn't matter the size. The smaller farmer is going to have, perhaps a 10% reduction in drying costs, and that's a big thing. No matter what you're drying, the drying costs can be low. But let's take an example. Let's look at someone who's drying a large amount of grain, maybe 1 million bushels. In those situations with today's cost, you're looking at many thousands of dollars. You're probably looking at tens of thousands of dollars. Now, $10,000 or $20,000 is a big thing no matter who you are. It doesn't really make any difference how large you are. You're going to feel that. And this burner can make that kind of change.
I think our harvest has changed a lot. In the last year or two, having the watchdog system, he's been able to, instead of that 10 o'clock run up to the grain setup here, it's just a matter of flipping on the computer and checking it, and he takes the laptop in and parks it right next to our bed, and this year we'll have an iPad and do it through that, I'm sure, instead. And it really has changed the way, that it just feels more relaxed, and maybe that's just my perspective, and he wouldn't agree with that, but it feels a little more relaxed when he's able to have some peace of mind that he looks at it and says, okay, everything's all right, and he doesn't have to worry, or doesn't have to make that one more run up and double check things. And I have an iPhone, and we check it on the road, we check it, if we're gone, we can, pull it up and keep an eye on things that way. So technology's made it a little easier.
There's one other area that's going to have to take some special consideration this year, and that is low temp drying, particularly if it's the so-called natural air drying or low temperature, 5-6 degree temperaturized drying. This has been very successful, and I've been a proponent of that type of drying in the past. But what we always talked about in those situations is that you need to do that in a relatively decent fall. That's a great alternative, but 1 or 2 years out of 10, it's probably not going to work because of the conditions. Those years you may need to take it to the elevator. This year could be one of those years. We're going to have extremely high harvest temperatures. Temperature of the grain coming in is going to be 80, 90 degrees, and the storage life of that grain at that kind of temperature is only a couple, 3 weeks. So you may not be able to dry that grain fast enough to keep it from spoiling on the top. So this is going to be 1 year that drying with a natural air or low temp drying bin is probably not going to be a good thing. And everyone is going to have to take in consideration the high temperatures of the grain, because that's going to drastically affect how long that grain will store. GSI has worked really hard to be at the forefront of computerized dryers, remote monitoring, be able to pick up your smartphone and look at the display on your dryer and know exactly what's going on, even change some of the settings on the dryer. So we've went that direction, and we think that's the future. So we've worked real hard to make sure that we're in that place, so when they're ready to make that change and use technology, we'll be there for them.